This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
You were listening to Copy Chief Radio, and even though he ducked out on us last week, he's back this week, the Copy Chief himself, Mr. Rogers. What is up, my man?
Hey, it's good to be here, brother. Great to hear you again, Jonathan, and thanks again for you and Ross jumping in. That was a great follow-up, really cool takeaways, so I appreciate it.
Oh man, it was actually a cool thing that we might bring back is just because you're always, as a copy chief, you're always copy chiefing people's work inside of Copy Chief. Oh, how many times can I say Copy Chief there? That's like plug. But it's good to see results after you do that work, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite thing about the community is that it's like a copy lab where, you know, it's one thing to have people shoot out ideas and talk about what they're doing. It's a whole nother thing to have people post something up, have a lot of smart people weigh in on options to fix problems, have them go implement, test, and then report back those results. I mean, that's everything. That's how we learn and grow and find out what actually works rather than just theories. So, yeah, I love it, man.
And another reason why they say nobody writes alone, huh?
That's it, baby. Boy, you're good today. You're like, Mr. PR,
right? All right. So let's get down to business. Look, I know that usually you want to take the lead, but I'm taking the reins from you this week because you did some work and I was watching you. I was surrounded by this Ask Formula launch, and at the center of it, I see my man Kevin Rogers doing videos, doing emails, doing promotions, and I really want to know how that Ask launch went for you. So first question, how did you end up, because you never do, as far as I know, you never do affiliate promotion. So how did you end up working on that?
Yeah, good question. Right. So it's only second time ever that I've promoted somebody else's material. The first one being John Carlton's Simple Writing System. And it was a little different because I was teaching that system along with some other amazing copywriters, David Deutsch and David Garfinkel and some greats. So that was a real easy choice because you would sign up and you would actually be in my classroom, right? So this is really the first time that I've ever said, hey, I've seen this guy's system. I'm endorsing it 100%, and here's all the reasons I think you should buy it. And the way it happened was, when I started Copy Chief, around the same time, Ryan Levesque started his private group called Next Level Mastermind, Facebook group, and it's a great group. There's a lot of smart people in there, and Ryan's always really impressed me. I was a guest teacher or presenter. I think I'm the only person who's ever done that twice in NLM. So there was a bit of crossover. A lot of my members were members of his and vice versa. So already it was sort of a natural fit. And then, of course, last year, Ryan wrote the book, a New York Times #1 bestseller, just really made a huge splash and started doing a lot of exciting work, or at least sharing the exciting work he'd been doing around the Ask method with surveys and quizzes. So, Ryan was the hot commodity last year and certainly right now. Rather than look at him as like competition or something because we have similar businesses, and I know Ryan, we've hung out and had dinner a few times. He's a super generous cat, always happy to share. So we've had a lot of deep discussions about what it's like to run a community, what works, what doesn't work, for bringing on new members, retaining members, all that stuff. So when he asked me to promote, it was a pretty easy yes for me. I just thought this makes sense. There's, I trust Ryan to put out a great product. There's a lot of natural crossover. And the cool thing about having a copywriting community, Jonathan, is that, man, like every other system needs copy, right? The copy is the missing element in like every other, unless it's like Ben's thing where he's a copywriter with a specialty. If it's, a traffic thing or a funnel thing, or here's how to create a badass landing page with my little robot thing. copy's always the missing element. And I love when marketers try to invent a copywriting robot to solve this problem. All you do is you answer some questions and, copy max 9,000 spits out perfect. I mean, come on, it's ludicrous. And so yeah, it was an easy yes for me. And so then what happened was Ryan sent me a video because I had agreed to promote. It was a private video. I got to say, man, I was blown away. Like, there's a lot in this industry. There's a lot of, hey, let me do something cool for you because I want something from you. Here's the thing. I had already agreed to promote. So it wasn't like this was Ryan trying to convince me to promote. He made a video and he offered to give me 3 things that I just sat there literally with my jaw up on going, you got to be kidding. The generosity he was putting out in this video blew me away. And I remember at the end of the video, I said to myself, okay, if there's been any question in my mind about why this guy is so successful, that just answered it. When you, like, we always hear about be a giver and be generous and how can you make somebody's day? This like blew my mind. And so, I mean, like really taking me on the inside of his business, easily $30,000-$40,000 worth the value in one video. And so I got excited. Part of that was come to my intensive. It's a $10,000 event and learn this method. And now that was exciting for me. First of all, because I've had, people I'm very close to, including Ben Johnson, my former writing partner, who's gone to that intensive and was blown away. And Ben goes to a lot of stuff, so I knew it was special. And so I arrived in Austin. This is only, a month and a half ago now. And I just, I'd read the book, and like a lot of people, I figured, I get it. It's like you ask people what they want, and then you give it to them. It's not this amazingly novel concept. Then I sat there, dude, for 3 days, and he really brought us through the system and showed us all the nuance, all the intricacy. And I was blown away, dude. And in the room, I was blown away on 3 levels. 1, with the information I was learning. 2, with the room itself. And I'm talking 50 people, the highest level marketers you can think of and name in our industry, all sitting there, like really soaking it in, like really, and being challenged, because it was very much a workshop where, you were challenged to do parts of it. And how would you create your quiz? What would your quiz questions be and all this? And people like really, it's challenging. And the third thing was with Ryan himself. I mean, he stood at the front of that room for 3 days and taught deep. And so I left there. And the other thing that happened, Jonathan, was that everybody there, I was the only guy in the room labeled copywriter, right?
Yeah.
And like every other business owner there pulled me aside just about and said, hey, man, we got to talk.
Wow.
I need copy. And, so like, once again, just like every other system, copy was just like underrepresented as an element. And so I saw this huge opportunity. I was like, wow. First of all, I've been working with all these freelance copywriters, and they all need work, and I'm always on them about specializing. And this is the perfect thing to specialize in, because it's a different way to go about business. It's it's a collaboration, right? It's not just somebody hands you, here's my project, make magic, and it better be good. That's the typical client copywriter relationship. This is, hey, I've got this amazing research because I ran this deep dive survey, and would you help me analyze it and really understand, which buckets these people belong in, and exactly how we can customize our messaging to speak to people in a way that feels special to them, and give them a ton of value before we even make a sales offer to them. And that's what most copywriters I work with are looking for, those kinds of relationships and partnerships. So in 3 days, I had this total mind shift about what's possible and how the rest of my year would go as a business person. So needless to say, you can hear it in my voice. I became crazy with it. And I won't say it was embarrassing, but I realized like, wow, I'm like out of my mind with this. I sound like at times like as someone who becomes religiously converted or
Fanatic.
yeah, fanatic. Yeah. And I'm going, but you know what? I've always been genuine, for better or worse, and I just had to be real about it. And I honestly, sincerely believed, and I'm sure of it, that we were standing at the crossroads of the next phase of how we're all going to market our products. Quizzes and surveys will become a staple, just like product launch formula and video sales letters are a staple where they once weren't. And it's just, again, a huge opportunity for everybody I care about, business owners and freelance copywriters, to do great work together. So that's why it became not just me, meeting my obligation to send out some emails and promote a thing, to me becoming a complete fanatic and just being ever present about it.
I saw your excitement and I was wondering what the hell happened to this guy? What bit him? But now I can kind of see, because it definitely is exciting when you see, first of all, the level of information you get. Because I worked with Ryan last year. I don't know if you stuck around. Did he invite you also to the elite mastermind afterwards? He usually
that's another interesting thing. But he did, and I declined.
Oh,
I declined because I was really excited about the idea of it. And I've made the mistake before of joining something on the spot, all lathered up and regretting it. And I said, you know what? If this is a real opportunity, it's not going to go away in this second. I'll miss this party tonight. Yeah. But I need a week. I'm going to take a week and decide, do I still feel the same? And so that was the other end of it. Was I did feel the same after a week. I talked to several members of the elite group that I knew personally, and I got him on the phone. I was like, Ryan, I gotta do it. I gotta come in. And so now I am a member of Elite.
Oh, man. I would have been hanging out with you if I stuck around another year.
Were you in it?
I went last year. That's the reason the Podcast Factory happened. Because when I went in there, I was still doing the real estate training. And then when I got around all those people, I realized the real opportunity was actually the Podcast Factory. Mm-hmm. And I switched gears, and that was a huge moment. And that's what happens when you get in those environments with bigger thinkers. They shift the way you see things, kind of like so he took you down there. Mm-hmm. You learned the ask formula. You did the intensive. And so did you come back and use that, or it was just,
yes.
Okay. So how did you use it?
Yeah. So that was the other thing. Right. So, and again, my criteria for promoting anything ever will always be, I'm using this. It's kicking ass for me. Here's how it works. Right. If I'm not inspired to teach it based on how it's working for me, I'm not going to promote it. It just wouldn't feel right to me. And so that was the other thing so I had it from two fronts. I had it as a business owner with Copy Chief, and I had it as a freelancer. And you may remember, Jonathan, I swore off client work for 2016. And I was excited about that. And it felt great. But leaving Austin, some people approached me, and I was like, man, I want to immerse in this system so much right now that I'm going to say yes. I'm going to go through this, because again, it didn't feel like stress. It wasn't like, hey, could you write me a sales letter, and how well do you think it'll convert? Right. It was, hey, would you join me in this process? Because I could really use a copywriter's set of eyes, and I was like, yes. So that was one immediate shift, is it caused me to open my mind to client work again. The other one was I came home and I did a deep dive survey, like next day, sent it out to my freelancers. And it was amazing, dude. I had, and I'm really fortunate because there's a guy named Nate Dye, who I'd known, for a couple years. He was a founding member of Copy Chief, and he would come in and out of my world a little bit. But whenever he was there, he'd just blow me away, blow the room away with his knowledge. He's a Citadel guy. He's a retired Marine, intelligence specialist. He's been in like high stakes and hostage negotiations, just intense stuff. He understands human psychology on a level that most people couldn't imagine. And he's really into it. So he and I connected right away and started exploring all these cool ways we could begin to innovate within the ask method, even though I was still trying to catch up to it and understand it myself, right? So one thing we did was we did a DDS, a deep dive survey to my list of freelancers, and we started analyzing what we call the hyper responsive, which is basically the people who typed the longest answers back to you based on what we call the single most important question, which is something simple like, what's your number one struggle, when it comes to getting, high paying clients, something like that. And so we analyzed those answers the way you're supposed to do. But then Nate did something cool, and he combined those answers with the answers to another question, which was, how, of the clients you have now, how did they find you? And he started to combine that data to create sort of a new set of data. And we saw suddenly so many people, based on their struggle with clients, are going about finding work and finding clients completely the wrong way. It was amazing. And the other thing I realized was, as you know, I've been working really closely with freelancers, teaching them how to become an authority in the industry. That's one of the things I teach them. And what I've noticed over, 6 or 8 months of doing this is that a lot of copywriters use it, and it works fantastically for them, just as planned and even better. Ross is a great example. I mean, Ross is the ultimate poster boy for how to become a specialist and an authority in one thing in marketing and have your business just explode. Other people who are just as, experienced or capable as someone like Ross, I noticed just weren't embracing it, weren't doing anything with it, weren't creating the authority content the way I trained them, weren't eager to get on podcasts the way I trained them, all these things. But interestingly, they were still doing really well. They were still able to raise their prices based on what I taught. They were still able to get more referrals based on what I taught. And so they were perfectly kind of happy not doing the authority thing, except it was they had a little bit of guilt factor over not doing it because they knew how powerfully it could work. However, they just weren't drawn to it. They weren't inclined to do it, right? And so what I saw in that data was, okay, you know what? Not everybody needs to be an authority. Like there are other ways to be is quote unquote gainfully employed as a freelancer, and grow your business and make all the money you want. And you don't ever have to let your name be known if you don't want, right? And so anyway, that was a huge breakthrough at how, just one quick instance of how I used it in my business and what it revealed to me. So that was another thing that just got me crazy. I'm like, oh my God, and it really works. Aside of it sounding cool and conceptually being amazing, I mean, it actually works, right?
Wow. That's amazing. Any other big takeaways from your whole Ask launch? That's a ton already. Yeah,
I know. So that was just basically, being in the launch itself, I'll just give you the 1 minute recap here. It was great because the other people promoting some were incredibly skilled at doing these product launch formula type of launches as an affiliate, including Jeff Walker, who invented it, including who won, who did the best of anyone. And then a guy named Justin Livingston, who I'd actually never heard of, who is a superstar when it comes to promoting products. And I'm proud to say, and I'm telling you, Jonathan, my list size, my reach, compared to everybody else in the top 10, we're total David Goliath situation here. I bet no one else, except for Keith Krantz, who did amazingly well because he's a Facebook ads specialist, and that was his secret weapon. I bet everybody else had easily a 70, 80,000 a person list. Mine is about a tenth of that. And we came in 9th out of all these affiliates. And marketers that I've looked up to and learned from in regard for years, behind me, not in the top 10. And I'm just going, you know what it told me, man? It said that all the work you do to create relationships, with your subscribers and be open and honest and sincere really pays off. That stuff is real. And it's you know what? It's a difficult thing to measure on a day-to-day basis. And so the great thing for me with this was that it was the first time I had a true measurement of what all that relationship building actually meant. And one last thing I'll tell you, I sent out an email because I knew I did not do something that I'll do next time, which was segment my subscribers. In the beginning of the promotion, I should have, like Andre Chaperone does so well and James Schramko does so well, sent out an email and said, hey, I'm going to promote this thing. And if you'd like to hear about it, click here and you will. Otherwise, you won't. And a couple of reasons I didn't do that. One, I technically wasn't really prepared to do it. Secondly, I didn't feel I had the list size to do it. You know, I thought if only 20, 30% of my list asks to do this, first of all, I'm so jacked up about this that some people are going to miss out because maybe they missed that email or whatever, right? So I was scared to do it, just calling it out. And anyway, so I barrage my list. I torture people for 2 weeks. I do my best, of course, to create quality content, do innovative things. I think we did a good job of that. So the day after the launch, I sent out essentially an apology letter, or really it was just a thank you to my list. And I said, look, I know this has been crazy, and here's why I promoted. I do not plan to make a habit of it. But here was the thing, Jonathan. In that last week, the week of the promotion, I sent out 80,000 emails, and I received only 130 opt-outs of my list and only 2 complaints. And to me, that said, that's a lot of people being very tolerant and patient with me, or they're either like interested and they're reading along, or they're like, let's just let Kev get through this and then he'll be back to his normal self, you know? And so that meant a lot to me. So those were the big takeaways, and not something I'll be doing a lot of, but when it's right, it's good to know that it's valuable for people.
So here's something I want to ask before we wrap up today's call. I saw you promote this like I've seen you promote nothing else, is you were really going hard. And I'm wondering, does it change the strategy to when you're promoting your own stuff now? Will you promote that hard?
It's a great question. And absolutely. That was the other thing it taught me. And that's why I have to give it up to the competitive nature of a JV launch. You know, part of the product owner's job when you run a JV launch is you have to keep everybody really stoked and feeling competitive. You know, there's ego involved, of course, and you want to get in that, you want to move up the list like anything else. And Ryan did a great job of that, keeping it with integrity, but really getting you excited to push harder. And so it taught me that I can push that hard if I believe in something that hard, why wouldn't I push that hard, right? And so I absolutely will push my stuff harder. And the other thing I realized is a lot of people who joined, of course, are people who are known to me and have been through my trainings before. A lot of people I had never interacted with before. I had no idea they were on my list, never heard from them before. And so I realized you have to work really hard and be really loud to make sure you get everybody's attention. And so I won't do a disservice to people again by laying low and trying to quote unquote be cool, because it doesn't do anybody any favors.
Thank goodness. I'm so damn happy to hear that. So what do you have coming up for us next time?
Well, next we're going to talk about, it's a bit of a related topic. We're going to talk about freelancers and how important it is to specialize. I'm always talking to freelancers about this, and so I'm going to go into some of the reasons it's really critical for you to specialize as a freelancer.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. So this is a wrap for another Copy Chief Radio. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Chiefs, for tuning in. We'll be back in your earbuds next time. You've been listening to Copy Chief Radio. Thank you for tuning in. If you're digging what we are laying down for you, then your next step is to go over to iTunes, type in Copy Chief Radio into the search bar, and when you find the show, subscribe. We will be back in your earbuds next week.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.